Hey everybody, welcome back to Tomcat Airguns. What I've got in front of me today is a majority of the Atlas bipods that are available, but specifically today I want to talk about the CAL Gen 1 and the CAL Gen 2. I'll tell you a little bit about the history of why it existed and then suddenly didn't, and then why it's back, the changes, and how to tell the two apart. Alright guys, here's both CAL bipods. You can see here CAL BT65 LW17 means that's the quick release. BT65 LW17 again with the quick release. Let me get this out of the way so you guys can see a little better. So straight away you might notice this curve right here. This one doesn't have that curve. This one's got a bumper in the front, this one does not. There's many more differences to these two bipods. So about a year ago, I'd say, Atlas came out with the CAL bipod. I was pretty excited about it because it has a wider stance than their popular V8 model or their PSR model. And I like that because it's a little bit more stable platform. But and so I bought one right away, and then I went through the process of doing a review. I was going to post it up, but I pulled the review because they pulled the model. And I'm not going to put a review out on a product that doesn't exist, you can't get. So I kind of just had a lot of other stuff on my plate to take care of, and I never got back to following up on, what happened? Why is this no longer available? At the same time, I was happy I had one, because now you can't get them. So I asked Casey, the owner of B&T, I said, what happened? Why did you pull this model, and now all of a sudden we're seeing it in the Gen 2 model? What are the differences? Why? The main reason that they changed from Gen 1 to Gen 2 was the cant feature. Okay, this tilt or cant right here. On the old model, it has a tendency to go from a very tight position, I don't want to say locked, but a very tight position to a loose position like that. And there's no real in between. The new model, they've corrected that. And you can tell, looking at them maybe from this angle, you can tell there's been a significant change in the design. They didn't just play around with the screw a little bit, they made this whole base assembly is now different. And the new one has an adjustable preload tension on the tilt or the cant. Another thing that I found out was when you have this mounted to your rifle and you go for tilt, okay, you can hear that. Oh, it just loosened up too much. If you tilt to the right, it has a tendency to actually loosen the whole thing. If you tilt to the left, you can hear it tightening up. That's not what you want when you get a bipod. You want something that's going to have either locked out, no tension, or somewhere in between. And the new one does that. The new one gives you that option. There's some other changes as well. But this is the main reason why they did that. So the new one, there you go. Okay, I can go back and forth. I'm not tightening up as I go to the left, and I'm not loosening as I'm going to the right. If I want to lock it out, I crank down on this, and that sucker, I hesitate to say locked out because it's not like a mechanical lock, but you have enough tension on here to where it's going to take a heck of a hit to move this bipod around, or you're really going to have to crank on it. And now, if I want it loose, I got it loose. Real easy. Okay, but it allows you to have that in-between tension where the old one did not. Another difference between the two is the new one has the legs in a more forward position. It's made to go on the rifle with the quick release lever to the right and the legs in a forward position. The old one, the legs were right underneath this center hub. What that does is it lowers the bore of the rifle into that bipod a little bit. It's not a huge difference, but there is a difference. I'll put this one on and you guys can actually see the slight difference that there is. In fact, this one's sitting up off the ground even. you can see right here between the rail and the pivot point, the distance there and the distance here. The distance on this one's a little bit greater. Why is that important? Well, like I said, I was excited for the CAL because of the wider stance adds to stability. If you take a bipod, it's in the shape of a triangle. And if this is my triangle, and I put sideways tension just on the very tip here, that tension goes down the leg and it's going to tip the whole triangle over. If I was to take that same amount of tension and put it in the center of this triangle, it's no longer going straight down the leg for a tilt, it's now going against the leg in this fashion, and instead of wanting to tilt over, it's going to want to push the whole thing. It's going to be a lot harder. You're going to need a lot more tension to push that over. It's one of the same reasons why, this 5H is a popular model, because it's got a huge wide stance on it especially versus the V8 model, and see the difference here. I mean, you're talking about this triangle being way up here, your bore is about there. That's why this one is pretty popular with bench rest shooters and in airgunning. So I was excited about that, and I was excited that they made that little bit of a change. It's not huge, but it's just a subtle difference that adds a little more stability to this model. Now, going back to the difference between the V8 and the CAL, like I said, you got a little bit wider stance, not a huge difference. But every time you widen this triangle, it gets more stable. So, same thing, let's go back to that triangle example. If I have a narrow triangle and I push sideways on it, it's going to tip over real easy. If I widen that triangle, it's going to be harder to tip that triangle over with force. And if it gets even wider and wider and wider, it gets harder and harder and harder. Two other differences between these bipods. For one, if I fold these legs up, let's see, legs forward. You can see here that you've got a lower profile on the Gen 2. Just a slightly lower profile. So when you're folded up on the rifle, it takes up just a little bit less room. And that relates to having this attachment point lowered down into the legs a little more. The other difference I saw was a very subtle difference in the quick release lever. This is the standard lock right here. You push down, it unlocks, okay, great. And they improved this with the new one. It's got this little bump on it. And this might be a subtle difference that's like, hey, so what? But it makes a huge difference, and it's really a big improvement over the previous design. And honestly, I hope they do this as an option or whatever for the rest of their lineup, because that small thing right there is really a big thing to the end user. So let's say you're like me. You picked up a Gen 1 and you're using it. Maybe you've noticed these issues, maybe not. But you like a Gen 2 with the upgrades and slightly different style. So what do? Are you kind of stuck with the Gen 1? You have to shell out a bunch of money for Gen 2? You don't. Email Atlas at accu-shot.com and tell them you have a Gen 1 and you want it upgraded to a Gen 2, and they'll be happy to do it for you. You will have to pay shipping to get your Gen 1 to them, but once you do, they're going to rebuild it, they're going to check it over, rebuild it into a Gen 2 and send it back to you. And that's it. Easy, done. Now, I don't want to speculate on turnaround time for something like this, so maybe when you email them, say, hey, about what's your time frame for turnaround if I send my bipod in today? But think about it. Basically, you're going to get a brand new bipod sent back to you. They'll probably take the legs off all the way up to the silver plate, because from there down it's all the same, but the central hub is totally redesigned. So you'll get basically a brand new bipod for the shipping cost one way. Now, there's some people out there that might like the Gen 1 over the Gen 2 because it goes loose, so quick. I'm not one of those people, so I'll be sending my Gen 1 in, my second Gen 1 in, to get upgraded. But some people might like it. And if you're one of those people where that seems like something that you would like and you don't have a Gen 1 yet, I'm gonna tell you, hurry up. Find one either used or a leftover stock or on clearance and pick it up now. Because I went over to the Atlas website and I looked for a Gen 1 specific CAL. They're not selling them. So this model is now discontinued. You can't get it anymore unless you find it used or old or clearance, whatever. And that's another thing, guys. Take a peek out there, because if these are now discontinued, they should be going on sale. So you could pick up one of these cheap, send it over to Atlas, get it turned into one of these, and get it back, and you might have just saved yourself some money on buying a Gen 2 CAL Atlas bipod. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed this quick comparison on the Atlas CAL Gen 1 and Gen 2. If you're in the market for a bipod, go check out Atlas. They make darn good bipods, military grade, user-friendly, strong, and honestly, they've earned my respect. This wall back here is brand names and manufacturers that have earned my respect either over the years or recently due to the quality of the product that they're putting out. And Atlas, you make the wall. Also, I'd like to wish Atlas a happy 20th anniversary. Bravo, you guys. That's all I got for you today. As always, happy shooting, and thanks for watching. Hey everybody.